This is Joe's Corner 76. I will be discussing the human condition. In order to change it, we need to be involved. Did you know that even though happiness is usually healthy, it's not always the case? Happiness can benefit your health in many ways. Did you know excessive joy can actually be harmful to your health? One of the most pertinent examples is Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. This is a temporary condition in which there is sudden enlargement of heart muscles, usually caused due to extreme emotional or physical stress. This condition has been demonstrated by recorded instances in which a person developed stress and experienced this condition after a positive emotional event, such as winning several jackpots at a casino. There are cases of people who have suffered heart attacks when receiving pleasant news, but which had not been communicated in a calm way. Isabel Soares, a psychologist with more than 25 years of experience and the head of iMind. iMind is an app whose mission is to provide the necessary tools to learn and improve in mindfulness, enhancing the quality of life. Look this up. You might find it interesting. The University of Zurich established an international registry in 2011 to document cases of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy to better research this phenomenon. Happiness is good for your health. Just because a few people suffered heart attacks from being too happy doesn't mean that happiness isn't good for you. In most cases, happiness is a very healthy emotion, far more so than many negative emotions such as depression, anger, and fear. Happiness promotes greater longevity. Happiness can even help you live longer. A study from 2016 analyzed the General Social National Death Index dataset, which is used in social sciences research. The study found that among the North American adult population, happiness is associated with longer lives, independent of such factors as marital status, socioeconomic situation, and religion. The study involved more than 31,000 participants who were categorized into three groups based on the level of happiness: a very happy group, a pretty happy group, and a not so happy group. During the follow-up period, the pretty happy group had a 6% higher risk of death than the very happy group, while the not very happy group had a 14% higher risk. Happiness lowers blood pressure. A 2006 study published in Psychosomatic Medicine observed 2,564 Mexican Americans aged 65 or older. The results suggest that positive emotions such as happiness and hopefulness may positively affect blood pressure. Participants were divided into two groups: those taking blood medication to bring blood pressure down, and they represented 32.8%, and those who weren't. The results showed the positive emotions were significantly associated with lower systolic and diastolic blood pressure in the group not taking medicine, only lower diastolic blood pressure in the medication group. Diastolic blood pressure is the second number which measures the pressure on artery walls between heart attacks. Interestingly, the study found the likelihood of participants on an antihypertensive medication being moved to a higher blood pressure category was reduced by 3% for every point increase in the positive emotional score. The decrease was even more significant for participants not taking medicine at 9%, a defense against infections. Happiness can also boost our immune system. Research shows that when we are happy, our bodies produce more secretory immunoglobulin A, an antibody found in tears, saliva, and breast milk that plays an important role in the immune system's response to infections. Happiness can also reduce the level of salivary cortisol, which is often used as a measure of psychological stress. Less salivary cortisol is a good predictor of happiness. Well, stress can temporarily boost our immune systems. Prolonged exposure can weaken our immune systems and even trigger autoimmune diseases such as Graves' disease and rheumatoid arthritis. When happiness becomes harmful, experiencing happiness at the wrong time, doing it in the wrong way, and having the wrong types of happiness may not be adaptive and might lead to adverse results, as advised by Ellie Borden, a registered psychological therapist and the clinical director of Mind by Design. Research suggests a U-shaped relationship between happiness and health, indicating that happiness may have costs when there's an excessive amount. For example, clinical mania is characterized by persistently increased degrees of elevated positive mood. People with this emotional problem may be unable to experience negative emotions, and their happiness is in overdrive, Borden explained. Here, Aristotle's idea of medium of the mean, the area between deficiencies and excesses, may help people towards a more balanced state of bliss. The dangers of happy heart syndrome. Takotsubo syndrome, or stress cardiomyopathy, is a non-ischemic cardiomyopathy that causes a weakening of the heart's main pumping station, which is in the left ventricle. The symptoms are similar to those of a heart attack, including chest pain, shortness of breath, left ventricle dysfunction, and fainting. Research over the years has shown that pleasant emotional stressors, such as excessive happiness, can trigger this condition, also called happy heart syndrome. While symptoms disappear after a few weeks, some patients face serious complications, including sudden cardiac arrest and death. The condition also comes back. For example, in a study, researchers observed 136 participants, only 6 of whom were men. 7 women, or 5% of those involved in the study, experienced another fatal Takotsubo syndrome 3 weeks to 4 years after the first attack. Another study found that those patients with Takotsubo syndrome are at risk of readmission and death after being discharged from the hospital. The study analyzed data from 61,412 patients hospitalized for Takotsubo syndrome and found that 11.9% of them were readmitted in 30 days of discharge, and among them, 3.5% died in the hospital. Extreme happiness can be linked to risky behavior. Happiness, like anger or depression, can be linked to certain changes in behavior that may be a problem. A study published in the Psychological Bulletin suggests that experienced heightened emotions, such as extreme happiness, can reduce a person's perception of risk and dangers. Consequently, they tend to engage in more impulsive and risky behaviors than they would on other occasions. The researchers attribute this to a psychological trait known as positive urgency, which involves acting impulsively when experiencing strong positive emotion. Examples of behavior with positive urgency include college year-end drinking parties and the resumption of gambling by recovering addicts who are in a happy mood. Such events may lead to binge drinking, drunk driving, alcohol-related events, and risky sexual behavior. Relapse into gambling may lead to lifelong addiction for struggling individuals. Extremely happy people may use avoidance coping strategies. Extreme happiness can also sometimes lead to individuals to ignore or dismiss negative emotions or experience. This can result in avoidance coping strategies and ultimately long-term negative health outcomes. A 2021 study published in the journal The Belgian Association for Psychological Studies tested almost 700 people from the United States, Germany, Russia, and East Asia, and found that some cheerful people may avoid experiencing negative emotions altogether, while happiness was negatively associated with the well-being of Americans. Avoidance coping strategies are passive ways to reduce or ignore the handling of stressful situations. However, these strategies usually underlie the issues that are unresolved, and the situation may deteriorate. Avoiding coping strategies can also lead to adverse health outcomes, including post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety disorders. These psychological problems may have long-lasting effects. A decade-long study involving more than 1,200 participants found that avoidance coping was associated with increased chronic and acute life stressors 4 years later. Experiencing heightened emotions, such as extreme happiness, can reduce a person's perception of risks and dangers. The emotional price of extreme happiness. Experiencing intense happiness may not always positively reflect our emotional well-being. As clinical psychologists and marriage therapists warn of the unfavorable impact of extreme happiness, the high that comes with extreme happiness may be followed by a crash, leaving the person feeling depleted and vulnerable. Research has shown that a highly positive event can make other events seem less enjoyable, as the extremely happy event sets the standard for evaluating all other events. For example, a group of college students who had previously received exceptional scores found lower but decent scores less satisfying. In a separate study, 22 lottery winners were interviewed in 1 year after they won. Although the initial thrill had disappeared, the participants reported experiencing more negative emotions and finding everyday amusements less fulfilling than before. Emotional self-regulation can improve your heart and health. Extreme emotions, whether positive or negative, must be balanced with self-care and health and healthy coping ways to maintain a stable and sustainable degree of well-being. Emotional regulation is a primary skill that positively impacts psychological well-being, and it may lead to spiritual growth. A cross-section study involving about 600 teenagers from the Bronx, New York, found a positive correlation between emotional self-regulation and healthier eating habits, such as an increased consumption of fruits and vegetables and greater physical activity. Thus, emotional regulation may be a significant factor in shaping teenagers' eating and weight-related issues. Emotional self-regulation can lead to a sense of inner peace, which can profoundly impact our physical health and well-being. When experiencing inner peace, we're most likely to be free from stress, anxiety, and other taxing negative emotions that can take a toll on our health. As a result, inner peace can help promote physical health by reducing stress and anxiety, improving sleep quality, and boosting the immune system. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Joe's Corner 76. You can hear me on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, and YouTube at Joe's Corner 76. If you enjoyed this podcast, tell your friends there are many more that you can hear on Spotify and YouTube.